We have my beautiful friend Christopher Dian today, and this episode I've been so looking forward to because you've been my top priority in a list to come here. And as
Sweet.
as you would probably aware, some of the friends who are listening, Christopher is a very uh, iconic figure in our community in the Shire. Actually, a few years ago, I remember reading on one of the local articles or newspaper, maybe regional newspaper, you were listed as one of the most influential people in the region.
I was right behind Mandy Nolan. I thought that was great.
Right, but you're
Or
right,
just in front.
right above few people before Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember reading it there. But anyway, you have so many things that you have done for the community, and this is why I really value also that you come here today. And we, of course, this is an unmapped and unedited, unfiltered conversation.
Great.
Anything, and Christopher is one of the few people in my life that when we discuss things, there are things that I'm so skeptical, so cynical about, and I love the quality that Christopher's based on data and very informative, and also the ability to change my mind about things. And
I know, don't even try changing minds in this modern world. It's madness. People are so in their tunnels. We all are. I am too, so it's just my tunnel. But so we don't have to change your mind. I just share my mind, that's
Yes.
all. And I'd love to hear yours, and I love the things you do. Francesca's one of our little jewels in our community. She sparkles, and she brings music and light and love, and has great connections with lots of people. And
I think I
To me?
learned from the best. Because you present the same thing for us as a community. You create heavens for us with your all the musical things that you did as well.
time to move off the Mutual Admiration Society and talk about the meaning of life,
Well,
which is what I'm interested
I
in.
adore you, and adore the way you are. Also, how it is that I have come to appreciate about you is being so down to earth. And not being a people pleaser, and very good at what you do, whether it's business wise, art wise, and you created an art space for visual arts for people to be creative, to have a space and come and create something so significantly very important to every individuals who practice art. And
I agree.
you make that space happen. Can you elaborate? Can you share how did you because you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes
did you
and
start?
no, because I was a long time getting back to. I've always loved art since I was a child. I went to galleries. I admired people who could make these amazing creations, but never felt it was in me. I was the observer. That's all. I go back a long way just to start off. I remember when I think I was 5 years old. I was living in Africa, in Nairobi, in Kenya, and I was out in the garden dreaming about whatever you 5-year-olds dream about. But at that point, I was wondering what it's all about. Even at that age, what is this thing I'm doing, being, having all about? And, it was in a very crude way. I was asking, what's the meaning of life? I know I was. And I remember seeing a little, one of those, dandelion type
Oh,
of
yes.
things. It's like a little parachute flying high up in the blue sky, and I'd watch this thing. And in my childhood books, of course, when you see a shooting star, you make a wish, So I made a wish at that age, and blow me down, my wish came true. I wished for a garage to put all my cars in, and my stepfather then had built me one unbeknownst to me. For my birthday, I got this perfect garage that was everything I dreamed about. But it wasn't that, it was what is going on with this little thing whispering through the sky, and me and the animals. We were right beside a national park full of everything, elephants, lions, zebra, giraffes. That was our boundary fence. We'd see the neck of the giraffe walking past our fence. and we heard the lions roaring at night. And I thought,
Wow.
all of this life, all this energy, what are we? You know, am I more important than a lion, or am I, you know? So that meaning started fermenting, and I was then, you know, I was moderately good scholastically, so I did well at school, and they pushed us into maths and science. I wanted to do woodwork. They wouldn't let me do it. I loved art, but they wouldn't let me do it because, no, you've got to put your mind to maths and science. So I got good at science. And science I fell in love with, and particularly biology,
Right.
botany, the study of, you know, living organisms. And so that, I got the science prize in year 12. I went straight into science at university. And I was studying microbiology and chemistry and all that stuff. And something really turned sour in that. I started to see through the veil, if you like, of our society. And I realised I was being trained to make napalm to kill people. I was being taught to create the next poison chemical that we would kill plants with. I was being bred to become part of the factory that is dominating Earth with technology and particularly toxic chemicals. Remember the Vietnam War, they were defoliating the forests with that DDT, well, it's not DDT, whatever it was called. And and there I am doing science thinking I want to help the world and be a better place. That's really was my mission.
Yeah.
And even help the world was kind of meaningless statement. What am I actually helping? So I went through that whole understanding. The Vietnam War was happening. We were out in the streets protesting. I was very much on the hippie side of life, seeing the folly of a patriarchal society that was crushing this planet, was crushing femininity, not just women. The feminine in everything was being squished aside. Got to make more rockets, more bombs, get to the moon, build bigger buildings, because that was the priority of a masculine world. Make a lot of money, a lot of greed. And I became very angry and resentful. In fact, in my second year chemistry paper, which was a fill in the boxes one, I just wrote an essay, which was my critique of the whole science thing. Funnily enough, they failed me. They actually failed me.
Oh, wow.
I didn't put all the little numbers in. And clearly I was saying I never want to do any more of this. So I switched to... I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time, and I was ready to just get on a motorbike and ride off across Asia and just say, to hell with it all, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And she said, no, don't leave yet. You've been following a path that wasn't your path, thinking you were going to do good. I thought I'd be like a doctor or something in the final analysis. And she said, no, just choose what's in your heart. Just go through, there was a list of 139 different subjects you could study at Sydney University. And she said, pick the ones that just resonate. And she was a wise woman, and she said, okay. And so I said, okay. I went through and I found I was good at English. I was able to do that, so I thought I'd like to learn more about that. Education, which included psychology in those days. I did 4 subjects, but the one that really hit me was social anthropology. And Sydney Uni had a very strong social anthropology thing. And that's the study of people and community and how networks mesh. And it just clicked in my brain. I had an uncle who was an anthropologist, actually. He used to study in the tribal world. He's a beautiful man. So I felt I'd go down that path. I did 4 years of social anthropology. I did an honours degree in it. Not a good one, didn't get great marks, but I loved what I was learning, and I loved what I was finding out about humanity. And it led me on a path to saying, this is a path where we can find the better ways to make a more balanced, fair, happy journey for the planet. So that was a love, the academic love, and of course it led me into social work, and I became a social worker for a few years with the government. Again, I saw a complete mismatch between what they said they were trying to do and what they actually did. This is the group that formed the backbone of the Stolen Generation. Our mission as district officers of youth and community services, as it was called then, which previously had been the child welfare group, was to find people who are not looking after their children well and yank the kids out and put them somewhere else. It's not just Aborigines, let me reassure you. There were many, many, many people who were divorced from their children because they couldn't clean their cupboards, they got too drunk, they bashed them up, all those sorts of things. So there was a humanitarian mission behind a very badly executed design. And I met my beautiful wife as a district officer. We both felt this was a complete mismatch on what they said they were trying to do and what was actually happening, where we saw this dreadful dissociation. So we went into being very political and having a good activist background from Sydney University. Thanks, Sydney. Yeah. We started being radical district officers, and we called ourselves, we created the Field Officers Group, and from FOG, which ended up having 300 district officers join us, we were writing these covert, not secret, but off the record newsletters and saying to everybody, we have to get back to community work. The word community never came up in any of the things we were doing. It was find the problem, put them in probation, and they'll end up in Long Bay Jail. It was just a straightforward track. And we said, that's not helping the family, it's not helping the kid, it's not helping community, it's not helping the cost of living, it's a disaster. So at that time, God bless him, Gough Whitlam stepped into the picture. And he rewrote so much of Australia's traditional, disgustingly conservative past under Menzies, and he just rewrote that into bringing, care for unmarried mothers, bringing social welfare, bringing in Medibank, bringing in so many reforms that we all now take for granted. But just remember who kicked it off against incredibly poisoned opposition. It was Gough and his crew. He picked the right people. And so he also created a video centre back then.
Oh, wow.
And in this, he bought and had set up 3 amazing video centres at a time when video was a completely unknown skill in the world. It was just the high professionals and the big movie people, the TV people who knew something about it. You had a camera that weighed 40 pounds, was the size of a suitcase. You had almost a black and white TV era. There wasn't much colour. No, we hadn't got colour by then, so we're still looking at black and white TV. And he built in Fairfield, where I was working as a district officer, a community centre. And what he calls a video centre. And he put what would then have been $250,000 worth of really valuable equipment. Look at this stuff you're now using, but this was big reel-to-reel tapes and, a lot of technology to make it work, technical skills. Yeah. And this thing sat there completely empty. I once wandered in because I was vaguely interested in film, and the poor guy said, I've just sat here for the last 5 months and nobody has walked in the door. We've got nothing. No one's touching the equipment. No one wants... They're all frightened of it. They all knew nothing and they didn't know what to do with it.
Okay, because they don't...
So, if we don't get something happening, this is a failure. And I looked at him and I said, I know. I've got 19 kids between me and Lynda who are on probation to us for car theft, for throwing rocks through windows, for, minor things, some of them more serious. But they went to the police put them in courts, they went to sometimes the kids' jails in those days, and then they would be left out on probation under our guidance. They used to call us junior coppers, which I found quite insulting actually, but we were trying to see a way to get them off that hook. And so I looked at all this group and said, well, what the hell, why don't I bring my probationers here and see what they can do with it? Yeah. Now, the thinking in the day was you give kids, kids like that were gangs and that they were destructive and they were going to just make everything, destroy it. A lot of vandalism was happening. A lot of public buildings were defaced and windows broken. It was that sort of suburb. But I kind of knew that in the heart of every living being, from an ant to a galaxy, there is a heart that wants to do the right thing, to connect to the universe, like my little star went across the sky. And I was saying, we'll give it a go, we'll watch them carefully, but let's see what happens. So Lynda and I said, we had a condition of probation. You had to have the kid meet you every week on a certain day at a certain time to prove everything's right, visit the homes, check the parents, do all that. So I said, condition of probation is next Friday after school, you must come to this address and you are obliged to go there. Now, these kids would never join anything. They wouldn't be in the police club or the football club or the chess club. They weren't people who got up with groups. In fact, the opposite. That what they called delinquents in those days would be socially isolated, separated, basically on their own, or maybe one friend, and they would be, what can I tear apart? Yeah, well, it's still happening in the universe. It's not
of course.
unreal. And we'd give, in psychology, a sentence completion test to people, and you'd say, one of the questions would be, I think that I am ... fill in the sentence. Now, your average high school kid in a middle-class suburb in a good school would be saying things, I think that I am a great cricketer. I think that I am good at maths. I think that I am going to be president. They gave themselves positive accolades. These kids always said, I think that I am a piece of garbage. I think that I am worthless shit. I think that I am useless. So we always got this negative self-identity. And so Lynda and I were thinking, because I'd done the psychology, I knew that if you had such self-worth that you were denigrating yourself the whole time, you are only going to become worse and worse in that social environment. You just become more alienated, more angry about everything. So I remember the day, and you've got to go back a long time before you were born, Francesca. This was in the late 70s, 1970s. We set up a video monitor.
Yes.
We set up a camera like this one, but 40 times bigger, pointing at the door where they had to walk in. And the moment they arrived at the door, one by one, trickling in, resentful, why the hell are we being forced to do this? Oh,
it's okay.
I can't believe it. I thought I just turned it off. All right, this is life as it happens.
It's life. This is life.
That was after trying to turn it off. Shows you how competent I am with technology.
Yeah, so we were at the camera.
So there's a camera pointing at them. And, of course, they walked in, and people had never seen themselves on TV. We didn't have iPhones. We did not have video. You had to be a movie star in Hollywood to be seen on a screen. And that was it. We weren't accustomed to this. And they suddenly saw themselves sitting on the screen as they came.
Amazing reaction.
Well, of course, the first reaction is, and all that, and wiggle the bum, and fuck you, and all. So we got a lot of that, because those were the nature of the kids. And then they got just entranced, because suddenly they were real. There was that body being shown back to them. There was a mirror of themselves, and there was that. Then they started to move and change shape and make faces. One by one, they all came in. We had 19 in the first year. And I tell you, these were the last kids who would ever join or stay with anything. They started to just connect. And they started to... We never lost one in a year. They kept coming back. We had a whole group. We called them the Vidi kids. So they had an identity. And we started to teach them how to hold a camera, how to, click the batteries or whatever. They weren't batteries, half of them, wind up things. And how to carefully arrange the views and to start shooting properly, how to edit reel to reel, which was not simple. You had to stop tape and wind it back and click a spot and wind on to get an edit to happen. Now, these kids who absolutely refused to do schoolwork and didn't want to do anything else suddenly became technological marvels. And not only that, there was this $250,000, put that in modern terms, just multiply by 5 or 10, into intensively looking after that equipment. There was never a single thing damaged or broken. They cared for it like babies. They were so grateful to have something that was theirs. We could see this self-reliance and energy building in their lives where they would rush to come to the Video Kids. They did the program. They started to make films. The most jaw-dropping thing was the films they made. We said, you can make a film about your puppy dog, make a film about the trees, whatever you like, whatever your interest. Film after film, and they would script and edit it and shoot it and put it together, were about the horror of where their homes were, their life. It would be the kids sitting at home after school at 7 o'clock, the drunk stepfather nearly always came in, angry, bash the kid, get out of my life, blah, 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 kicking, fighting. Then they would be kicked out of the house. They had nowhere to go. They had nowhere to play. They were dispossessed children. And all of this it was like reading a diary, an intimate diary of their lives. It was so sad. And you and I would make a film about, butterflies in the garden. They're making a story of their miserable life going to hell. So that unfolded, and Lynda and I would look at each other in awe, wow, this is so revealing about where their identity had come from.
Yeah.
Anyway, they build up their persona, and just to shorten the story, at the end of the year we had the graduation, so to speak, of let's do it. And so I said to them all, you can make a film about anything you want. You now know how to use equipment. You've looked after it well. Let's go. I want you to script, edit, and produce a film that you can show to others. No longer just your own stuff. And they scripted and edited this film, basically on the story I've told you. A poor kid, miserable, being kicked out, bashed by his parent, thrown onto the street, absolutely nowhere to play. They would play chicken on the main highway going through Villawood. And they would, there'd be a 4-lane highway, yes. 2 lanes coming this way, cars whizzing along at 100k. And their game was jump in the lane closest to the road and try and force the car to have to go to the next lane. And you had to be chicken. If you jumped out of the car's way before the car moved, you were the chicken. Deadly stuff, really deadly. And then
so courageous.
Then they took it further. They said the only place that is open for us to play in, there were no playgrounds in those days. You've got to go back to a very ugly era in Australian history. They had a little patch of ground, probably an acre, at the back of the Lever and Kitchen factory that used to be in Villawood. Lever and Kitchen made soaps, shampoos, detergents, dishwashing, all that stuff. Back in those unresolved days, we used toxic chemicals, we used things that weren't biodegradable, we used a lot of nasty chemicals, acetones and things that would dissolve the chemicals you want. And these chemical byproducts were simply poured down a drain and poured into the one little rivulet that ran through the park, that what they thought was a park. The water was white, just so you know, which is surfactants and chemicals mixing. The air would sting your eyes. It would burn. If you were in the air, you could hardly breathe. It was like being in a gas chamber. This is their playground. And they would go there, but they would suffer. They would feel sick. They'd have coughs. They'd feel nauseated. But they had nowhere else to go. They had no beautiful little swings and roundabouts in those days. Wow. And in this particular part of Sydney. So they filmed that and they said, it's time. We need some stuff. And they put this together as an edited film. We want to get a better world and a better life for us. I was so proud. Lynda and I were just blown away.
I'm having goosebumps.
And that they wanted to show it to the mayor, they wanted to show it to the council, they wanted to show it to their parents. They were now putting their identity in a positive way. It was so touching. So that was a gestation for me of what was possible if we got people feeling good about themselves and about their world.
And practice art. This is the whole thing.
Art's critical to life.
Beyond all of this that I'm listening, is take some people to show compassion, which you and Lynda have the ground for them to come in and go with the freedom given to them to say, well, you can be as creative as you like. It's just trust
Exactly.
and compassion, and they thrive.
Creativity is a major milestone step for people who are ADHD and disaffected. And, there was a wonderful documentary made here called The Infinite Game. And the local woman made this amazing documentary. I just wish more people could see it, but it's sort of bound up in all sorts of regulations. But it showed where young kids were acting out in class, were angry, were bitter. They were always the ones disruptive, throwing things at the teacher, swearing. They were always put in the class background with a D hat on, or told they can't come to school for 3 days. Those kids. She followed 4 of them, and a policy shift, which was very much led by Steiner schools, by the way, said, let those kids just find a creative outlet. Give them pen, paper, give them clay, give them trees to climb, give them anything they want to do, and let them go. Mm-hmm. Now, those kids started to become amazing creative souls. They started building and creating, and the passion they put into that, which they wouldn't put into algebra and they wouldn't put into English grammar, they didn't just tail along behind the rest of the class. They soared past the class. Those kids ended up in the highest scholastic achievement in the school. They ended up going to university and becoming senior, in their whatever field they'd chosen. The creativity opened their mind, allowed them to then follow their heart and build and do what they want to do. And I think it's a model of life that when you're given that passion to follow, and I think the Scandinavian schools are masters at this, they do it well. They allow that creative part to flourish. They don't even give kids homework. We have this stupid fossilised 19th century view that you've got to make them suffer at home as well, because suffering at school is not enough. And they don't give them homework, and those kids go on to become leading in their fields. They become the brightest in their fields. And it's not because they force them to do yet another 3 times table over and over again. So those are the things that have sort of shaped my life along my path. And I always had this gut feeling I'd like to be doing something good for humanity. I had that resentment build up over my anthropology years, understanding the masculine roles and feminine roles, which are very clearly and well articulated in old social anthropology ethnographies. And people would go into the tribal villages and the societies, and they would sit there sometimes for many years. Some of them did 10 or 12 years of research, 3-6 months at a time, living with the people. So they were not stupid. Yes, mostly they were male, but there are exceptions. And mostly they were talking to men about the way the world worked, which was a mistake. But then women couldn't talk to men, so that was another problem. And so we get a slightly slanted but not ridiculously wrong view of the world, where they still had very good data. They've copied everything. The short story, if I try to condense it when I understood what was going on, the men took the responsibility of the built environment. Men made sure their bark huts were built properly, and the forest was burned when it needed to be burned, and whatever they were doing, at different levels of technology. Men look after the built environment. If I shift that to our modern world, keep the cars running, keep the roof not leaking, make sure the rivers are clean, put tar on the roads, build a rocket ship to get to the moon if that's your objective. Men are very good at the masculine is very good at that. Let's get past what's between your legs.
I agree.
Masculine energy, we all have some of it, both. We all do. And men have been suppressing the feminine because, you didn't want to look feminine. And women have been kept in a box and suppressed in so many cultures for thousands of years. This ridiculousness that happens in every religion, Christianity. Nuns couldn't be priests, Muslims, women have to sit at the back of the mosque, blah, it goes on and on and on.
So many separations.
Always pushed aside and kept in the box. All you're there for is give us babies and make the kitchen work. But when you looked at real women's work in the village, it was incredibly important. And they held the glue of the whole society, and they looked after the networks. They looked after the social cohesion of human connection. So they made sure the birthday parties happened, and Uncle Charlie got visited when he was sick under the tree, and on and on and on. They looked after the networks, and women do that better than men. It's very clear. Look around the world today, it's women's groups everywhere, and men are sort of socially isolated, having a few little things, but it's rugby, football, and beer for most guys, isn't it? So that's a limited male bonding, and it's not nearly as strong as the feminine. And when I was a bit standoffish about men. I got to like women more, and I felt they were more intelligent and had a better view of life. And it was a long time before I fronted up to the fact that why don't I like most men? I find them boorish, I find them stupid, unrelating to art and the things I loved. But I eventually was persuaded to go to a men's group. John Allen ran it, a local guy here, and there were 80 men who showed up at this thing, which I'd never been to before, a lot. And the very first thing he did, he made us line up before we went up into the retreat centre at the bottom of a hill with the oldest man at the front, and you had to talk to everybody to find your age. So we had an 82-year-old up there, and we had an 18-year-old down here, and all along. And I was in the middle. I was probably just 38 or 40 or something, and I'm looking down that way. That's where I've come from, looking up that way. That's where I'm going. And then that group moved up, and it absolutely broke my heart open. What I discovered is men, given the freedom to talk honestly, openly, without fear, and without, I have to say it, the interference of female company, because men are posturers. We're all bloody... As soon as a woman's in the room, they're bloody, posing and wondering, could I sleep with her? It's a reality of human life. But when they were on this ground, it's become so sacred. It's so beautiful. And I've been to many mixed groups before this and enjoyed them, but, there was that tension there. Without that, men's hearts broke open. I saw more crying and more heartache in that 3 days than I'd seen in any group I'd ever been in. And people pouring out how much they loved and wanted to look after family, but, they'd had a divorce, the kids were separated, they were broken-hearted. All I ever wanted to do was the right thing, but I got it wrong, and I got drunk, or I had an affair, and it's over. And there was this deep, deep yearning to be doing real men's work. I'm great at building cubby houses and putting roofs on, and that's what I want to do, so she can be, or my partner, whoever it is these days, can be the person looking after the relationship. So when I come into the house, there's a happy, warm environment, there's good food on the table, there's a loving atmosphere. That's really what 99% of men want. They don't know how to get there, and we've had this whole feminist push that's pushed them further out into the wilderness. They don't know what they're doing. They think they have to change nappies to be a good man. We've lost a path somewhere. So that triggered in me that what do we do to bring the feminine back into this world? How do we build that awareness? Because it was so out of balance. It was clearly male-dominated, everything, from the governance to the money to the politics to the brutal behaviour in violent domestic situations. All of that's a symptom of something being very wrong. And not the truth. When I saw the truth of what men really wanted, it wasn't that. They do not want to be dominating with a club and making everything bleed. And so I saw this opening up needed, didn't know quite where to go, but it coincided with a moment where after 40 years of never doing art, deciding I was no good at 12 when I was pulled out to do mathematics, and I was never a very good drawer, I finally went back to a drawing class. I did life drawing. I, of course, went because I love the idea of drawing beautiful naked women, because I am a real natural man. But the very first one that showed up, the story, was a bloody 6'6" basketball male. Wow. And oh God, I've wasted my $20. What am I doing here? At least I thought I'd spend 2 hours looking at a beautiful female body. But then I started to draw, and I just started putting the line down. I thought, well, I paid for the privilege, I'll get on with it. And I started seeing the shape of his muscles and his flow of his body and the elegance of the light hitting it. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the process of transfiguring that into my version on a piece of paper. And that led me along the way into sculpture. I started doing clay sculptures, and that led me to marble. I was very privileged to meet Osama Al-Nassar, who's just the master teacher and a fabulous sculptor from Carrara in Italy. And he and my friend Ken Johnson took me into taking a chance on a big block of marble. I started carving, and suddenly I knew where my direction was, and it was about, most people think I do nothing but vaginas, yonis, vulvas, whatever you want to call it.
You do many other
But
stuff.
actually I don't. More than 50% of my sculptures aren't that, but that's what everyone sees. And I don't mind, because I wanted to bring the focus, but the focus for me was always the womb. The womb is the symbol of feminine, and it's what men don't have. It's the absolutely critical thing. It's the thing that brings the soul back onto this planet, that nurtures and has this instinctive want to make things better and healthier and like more whatever, warm and loving. And so I was into womb energy, but to get there you go through this fabulous portal called the vulva. So I said, I'm not going to back off this. I'd seen so many art galleries where women sit like this and pose, and they show and everything's covered up, and you see the men, they're up on a pedestal with their cocks hanging out, because that's the way men were presented. It's chalk and cheese. You look at the art for the last 2,000 years, you'll see that's very clear.
Yeah.
And it was only in erotica and in some sort of porno work that you would go beyond that.
That's the thing, that they still make it as though it's taboo to do what you do. And that's why I like that you cross the boundary of...
Well, the first thing I realised is it's actually beautiful. I mean, the whole body is beautiful, but so are these genitals. And to keep suppressing them is to suppress who we are. Yeah. The universe is all made up of masculine and feminine energy uniting and creating and building. And it's in the balance where the wonders come. If it's one only, it withers and dies, or it crucifies and destroys. But as soon as you get the balance in harmony, this thing starts happening. But it was so out of balance, I pushed my thoughts towards the bit that was missing. Yeah. And I went right in there. Vulvas, I did a whole yoni series of paintings. I didn't want to make them up. I didn't want to just look at porn sites to figure it out. So I let women show me exactly how they felt about it, and take the poses and do the drawings, and I did all that. And it was liberating for them and for me, this sense of freedom and whatever, respect and love for this very intimate part of our lives. And that's been building in my art as a gateway to letting the feminine have its value, have its worship it in some form. Yeah. Not to the extent of repressing male.
Of course not.
You need that guy to still come in with the bacon and put the roof back on, but don't wipe out the feminine. And so my art's quite confronting to lots of people, I'm sure, and I don't mind at all. It's time they wake up, is all I can say.
When I walk into your studio and I look at the arts, all the yoni expressions, I don't feel confronted by it. I actually feel valued, because I'm being acknowledged as a female. I feel to a point where I say to myself, like, I know I'm a woman, so I don't need to look for approval from a man to say that, oh, you need to be a woman in this way, in that way. So
absolutely.
Then I become very comfortable in my own skin. And also working with you, being your model as well. That's where the comfort zone is. It's not to challenge myself, because I feel completely comfortable with you. And
thank you.
That's something also that I understood with all the other classes that I've had, is there is the tabooism erased, and about this idea that they're perverts. There is nothing like that that I sense, and it's been very respectful. I feel very respected as the model. I mean, it's not easy to be butt naked, being watched by so many people.
I'm grateful to those who have the courage to do it.
Oh,
and
yes.
I never put pressure, and I never force anyone into a pose they don't want to do. It has to be coming from within and feeling.
Yeah.
And many women I know have had body imagery as stuff. We've all had the bloody cosmopolitan crap pulled down their throat.
I've had it coming into the Western world,
Nightmare.
and it took a while to realize that just doesn't fit right. And also the body issues that I've experienced is coming from the awareness, because someone make a comment about me, and it's a man make a comment about me, and I look at this man and I'm thinking, you're such an ugly idiot yourself, and
I bet you do.
just and just acknowledging that I actually feel fine, but you pick on something that you don't necessarily like about my feature. I don't pick about you, so I realize it's not on me. And then I move forward. And that's how I learned to love myself more and more through the art class, to accept my form as I am, because I thought the artists value that.
Well,
The artists acknowledge me with respect. And in that sense gave me a lot of space to go and, think for myself, who am I? If these people accept me for where I am, why shouldn't I do that to myself? And so it's a really great stepping stone.
And I love that you're taking your art to the next level. You are a wonderful artist, and I think it's just starting to be expressed properly, and I congratulate you on that.
Well, I see that. I see how nothing stops you, and you're so good at what you do. And of course, my admiration and my adoration of you, not just in terms of you as a being, but the sense of creativity. And in business as well, you're really successful at what you do. And of course, people want to know, what's the secret? But then I know that it takes endurance in many things. And
you know what the real secret is, I think, and I got it from, Dale Carnegie or Norman, whatever his name is, Think and Grow Rich. Those books were given to me by a woman many, many, many years ago who was just working for us as a secretary. But she was a very advanced soul who'd done a lot of work. And she developed this whole philosophy of, following the great thinkers of the planet about how to be successful in this world. And there's one line in the middle that resonates with everything, and that is, if you want to be really successful and popular and rich and famous and whatever the hell your journey leads you on to, make others the same. Do it for others. The more you help everyone around you become great, and it's, the opposite of Trump, who just wipes the floor with everybody the 5 minutes after they say anything that he doesn't like. That's the foolishness of that man, and the real foolishness, I'm going to get too political tonight, but the really saddest part of Trump is that there are so many people sucked into his vortex and believing the crap that he gives them authority to be racist, to be, anti-immigration, to be complete fools, to be warmongers. They all have a little bit of this buried in their soul, and they say, oh, well, thank God I found my man. I can now be that. I can say these horrible things. Now, moving on, the more, and you asked about business, first thing when I got into business, it had to be doing good for the world. It had to be something that wasn't destroying the planet and wasn't going to bring toxic waste like I've seen. That had to be creating something that was good for the environment, for the eco, for the people, and to make me financially well off. I'm not against making money. It took me a long time to learn to, but I did. And if you do that, then the real joy of my business was seeing all my employees, my investors, the people I provided, the customers, all getting benefit, all being happy that they're doing something good. They get up in the morning, they want to come to work, they feel I'm doing something really useful, I'm making money, I can build my swimming pool in 2 years, I'm on the way. all of that stuff mattered to me and always mattered to me. And had I had resentful employees, I mean, Lynda was my human resources officer, she was fantastic, but we had minimal turnover. Yeah. Once people got into my company and felt the culture, they wanted to stay there, they wanted to keep doing this great work, which was spreading tea tree oil and other herbal medicine around the world. Had to be scientifically proven. I never lost my love of science. I need data, I need facts, I need proof, and tea tree was a perfect vehicle to take me across the barrier of the big pharma suppression, very active suppression of natural medicine, not because it's dangerous, not because it's harmful, because it is too good. And they did not want it cutting out their profits, their perennial lifetime of take this drug. God knows cures were not in their agenda. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll give you absolutely data and facts about how we got deliberately shafted by big pharma. So I'll leave it there. I know it's real. I know it's not just conspiracy theory. But beyond that, the idea of doing some good is not just so I can get another Rolls Royce or so I can build another island like the billionaires have. I don't mind having one nice house, or I've got properties and I've got my pension comes out of what I've been able to earn and replace. But even then I had, I got a windfall when I sold my property, my company, and I did it not because I suddenly needed a big bag of money. I saw all these people who'd been investing with me, all these staff who'd been buying shares for 20 years with the company. And when you're a private company, it's very hard to sell your shares. They don't mean much. But we knew the value was growing and it was a great company and it was doing successfully. And then there came that moment in life where I've done all I need to do here. I could have gone on. I was looking at Blackmores and companies like that to become a multi-billion-dollar company and grow the asset to be richer and richer. And something just pulled me back. And it was quite a woo-woo story about how that happened. But I suddenly realized I'm not going to be any happier for that. I'm going to drive a lot of people into stress and pressure doing that. And it's not now there are other people who can do it better than me. My philosophy in life is always find people who are better than me and get them in the job and get out of the way. So I look for good CEO, good chairman of my company. I even stepped out of that role and said, no, you guys run it. And then the time came when I didn't need to be there. I knew that. And by being able to allow it to sell at the right moment, the spirit was with us. It was about 6 weeks before the GFC when our value would have been halved. But by that time it was peaked and we got a nice pocket of money. Enough. It's not, I can't buy a Learjet every week, but I can have a good life, and I do. And I was able then to say, now what will I do with my money? Well, I've got to invest it to live on because I'm self-managed pensioner. I don't get government money. I've never had government subsidies virtually my whole life. And so I said, okay, the obvious thing in this part of the world is real estate. I talked to some real estate agents, they're good people, friends of mine, and they said, oh, you've got to buy these places in Belongil, they're going to be worth squillions. It's where Strop had a house and a few other people. So he said, no, this bunch of units are going to be fabulous. They're the best, the marble, they're top end. So I bought these two things with my investment, and they made each $1,000 a week, and that was what we lived on. And I felt no love for it. I felt no connection to it. It was just a lump of marble with strange people coming, going, a lot of rich people all around me, all grumbling, all complaining, all wanting more in some way, being obsessed with putting a new roof on the place and doing this and doing that. And I kept saying, there's nothing wrong with the old one. No, we've got to keep standards up. And I'm feeling completely like a fish out of water there, mixing with these very rich people that didn't seem to care about anything except their material wealth. And so eventually I said, screw this. Why am I doing it? So 10 years after, and forget all those stories about how much money you make in real estate in Byron Bay, 10 years after I bought them, I sold them for the same money I paid for them in dollars. I didn't make I didn't make 5%
No
on
profit.
the sale.
Yeah.
I just had to get rid of them. And they weren't popular at that time. It was a down cycle, and so I just got rid of them. But it still gave me a bunch of money.
Yes.
And I went to the hinterland and I bought 2 properties that were farmhouses, because we've got this special provision that a farmhouse can have a dual occupancy, a farm property. And so I could build another house, and I used the money to create what became a complex or multiplex of little affordable living. And I thought about who could benefit most from that. And so I was able to build these little cabins, brand new, all mod cons, with their own little garden in a 20-acre place, very close to Mullum and Brunswick and Byron and all the highway, not out in the sticks, not up in a mountain where it's going to collapse, not in a flood zone. And I could then say to people, think 5 years, 10 years, this is your home. I'm not going to keep screwing you, putting the price up. I made it so that I had lots of little incomes that added up to as much as I was getting from the ugly Belongil,
Yes.
Taj Mahals. But I was doing it in a way I felt there was a community developing here. I'm looking after is the wrong word. I'm allowing people to find their happiness in a safe place where they now have gardens, they can have pets, they can grow avocado trees, they can,
They don't get kicked out.
and they're not going to be kicked out or the rent go up ridiculously or I sell the place next month. So it's a commitment to holding it. It comes with its headaches and heartaches, and that means I have never-ending septic toilet breakdowns that need to be fixed. I put new pumps in, 2 years later they break down, and another $2,000, and on it goes.
Yeah.
But I'm making okay money out of it. I'm not like I'm sacrificing my future. I'm making the same sort of money. I have more work to do. The other one could just be managed by an agent. I didn't need to do anything. But I'm also seeing that growth of human spirit. And that makes me happy. It's the same as when I was in business. What is bringing joy to my tenants brings joy to me. And where they're happy, and they are happy. They don't want to leave. I get
They don't want to
people
live.
6, 7, 8 years don't want to leave.
But where will people go?
They go to some other shitbox. There are around, but this is one where we love each other.
But
and
it's a
there's
community, what you created.
Yeah, it's
garden. It's a home. You created homes for people, and they make it. I mean, I always say to you, you always make heaven for people to come and enjoy. That's one of.
Not everyone will agree with that.
Well, for me, I'm talking about my experience of knowing you and of being a friend to you, and I probably don't express it often enough, but that's reality for me. And I aim to be anywhere near what you can be.
You have a house full of love and light and happiness, and you do know how to do that, so no worries there.
Thank you. In terms of how, so then I understand that you're saying, because you're acknowledging people, there are a lot of people who are better than me, then they can do better than I do.
Of course.
And that's just one, I think that's one maybe of the business downturn that we do as people who are, navigating a business life, because we think we can do it all and not being aware that the first few years is really difficult. And also never acknowledging that, hire the best lawyer, hire the best CAO, hire the best something to do the work for you and pay them well and makes their life good. No one with this mindset, and I think that brings us down. So it's a really useful thing that you have shared this.
You've got to get to a certain critical size before you can hire these people, and you can never afford them when you start. And I always build a shed that will have to be completely full before I'd build another shed, where some people go in and build a massive factory and then start filling it up. Well, I didn't have that luxury of all that cash.
And can you? Oh, sorry.
No. Go on.
Can you share with us how Thursday Plantation started, the tea tree oil thing, because it became a massive thing, and you're going to a celebration of the 50th
anniversary of the day my stepfather got the lease
Wow.
for Thursday Plantation
That's beautiful.
on a Thursday. That's why it's called Thursday. But nothing to do with the island, just remember. And it was a stab at the government who'd worked for 3 years to deny him and stop him and not help him.
Oh, wow.
And they always said, we'll talk to you on Monday, blah, blah, blah. And 3 months later on Monday, no, they can't do it yet. We've got to change the government. Anyway, the only time in 3 years, because he used to ring and chase them, they never did. And then one day he got a phone call on a Thursday. And he said, we've just been having a meeting and we've decided we're going to give you a chance to do your plantation in this very special property in Bunga where the best tea tree was growing.
Yeah.
So he used to say very cynically, the only bloody day the government ever works is a Thursday.
Probably
Which is
so.
where, after he'd moved on, I took over from him. I thought that was a good name to call it.
But it's actually very catchy too, because you
There
think
is
of
a story. I think we're going to run out of time soon, but I'll give you the short story, because I'm going to the 50th anniversary of that moment this week in Sydney, and I'm very thrilled to say the third company that we sold to one, who bought to another, who sold to another, and now this company.
Yes.
They're very, very enthusiastic about Thursday Plantation. They feel very proud to have the brand. They're doing a great job. It's all I ever want. It's like watching your children grow up. You want them to be looked after and do well.
Yes,
This is doing well. It's a great company. The start was kind of more interesting. I told you I wanted to get on a motorbike and go across Asia and blah, blah, blah. Well, I had this 3 years as a social worker with Youth and Community Services, and then we did what we want. Lynda and I fostered a revolution. Things changed. They gave us diary rights to do this stuff. And then I knew I had to get out. I couldn't spend my life in public service, putting knives in each other's back. And so I then did the journey I always wanted to do, and I got on a motorbike. I got on a plane, went to Malaysia, and then travelled all through from Singapore, actually, up into Nepal. Met up with a little group of Aussies, and the eight of us drove a bus and then a truck right through India, and then flew into Kenya, my home, and we got this old Bedford that flat out downhill with a tailwind to do 30 miles an hour, and it chugged us all around Africa. We went right across Africa and up through, and it was about a 5-month journey. And in that journey, I contracted some sort of paronychia. It's called a fungus under my toenail.
Oh.
Now, just before I'd left, I'd helped my father my stepfather, Eric White, get his first little crop of tea tree all started and set up in this place at Bunga. He was entirely on his own. No one believed him. What do you want to grow weeds in a swamp for some plant no one wants? They're trying to digging out. They were kicking it out for soybean and sugarcane, and they all thought he was mad. So did I. So did everybody, wasting his pension funds on this nonsense. But, I respected it. I admired he had the thought of it. And he had his own reasons for believing this is something Australia should get back. He was a migrant to Australia. We all were. Oh. When he got off the boat in Perth when I was 10 years old, I distinctly remember him telling us, as we walked down the gangplank, he said, now, remember, this is your new country. This is the country you will love. This is the country we are going to do something to give back for having us come here. A complete opposite attitude of the Pauline Hanson view of refugees. We weren't refugees, we were just migrants. Yeah. But, it was time to get out of Kenya, give it to the Africans. My parents were very supportive of that. We were not in the apartheid story at all. They were the opposite. But they said now is the time for them to run their country. We go to a country where we'll be welcomed. Anyway, so this was the culmination of that vision 25 years later. And he said, now I'm going to do something for Australia. Yeah. And so he picked tea tree oil, long story how he found that. He then went into a bush production, doing a little bit of work, trying to get the seeds to grow, true bearing, and I headed off. I was travelling on this journey, got this terrible fungal infection, and it was terrible. And all along the journey, my foot was getting sore and redder and angrier. My toenails were sort of blistering, and I had trouble even holding a boot on them. And by the time I got to London, I had tried 20 different cures. People said put salt on it. I went to pharmacies, I tried all the creams, none of them worked. I then went to whatever people said, piss on it, put Coca-Cola on it. I got them all. I tried them all. And I got to London and this thing was worse and it was getting angry. And I was visiting my sister, bless her, Angela, and she was in the middle of London there, in Ascot. And the very week I arrived there, I remember I've been on the road for more than 6 months now, my brother Michael arrived as a sales rep he was selling hi-fi needles or something, but he happened to bring a little flask of tea tree with him. And we sat in the room and I said, look, I've tried. And I'd just been to the London School of Tropical Medicine. I went to a doctor who said, we'll take a swab and we'll send it to the London School of Tropical. They're the experts on fungal medicine in the world. Yes. So they will bring us the cure. A week later, I went back to him and they said, bad news, kid, there is no cure. This is a fungus we've seen before that nothing works on. And so you're going to have to either live with it, and God knows you won't stop it growing, or we will take you to surgery, general anaesthetic, we'll cut your toenail off, you'll be removed, surgically removed, we'll cut the skin, we'll cauterize it with a very strong substance to try to stop anything growing. Only guarantee I can tell you, 1, you may never get your toenails back. 2, if we leave any cell that has this still growing in it, it will continue to grow. Yeah. And it's going to come back. Spread. And I thought, I got tinea and they want to cut my toes off. This is madness. That happened to be the same synchronicity that my brother arrived. And he said, well, listen, mate, this tea tree stuff that Eric's doing, give it a go, you never know.
You've tried everything after all.
Nothing else worked. So I went up in the bathroom in my sister's unit and I dabbed some tea tree on my toes. And I sort of watched within 10 minutes, I could see the redness and the anger going, and I could just feel the relaxation.
That's effective.
Within 4 hours, I took my shoe off and looked again, and it was just normal-looking toe. I went, what the hell? 4 days later, I had not a trace of it, completely gone. I had 2-3 applications of tea tree, and it was all it needed.
Wow.
So that triggered for me,
Revelation.
What he's doing is important in the world. This is going to be... I was looking for that business idea that was going to bring goodness to the planet. I was no farmer. I was a city boy. I had no love for farming. And yet I rang my mum to say, look, one day I'm going to come back over there. I'm going to spend a couple of years in Europe, but you tell Eric I'm really amazed it worked and wow. And she said, you've just rung as I've come out of hospital. He's had major triple bypass surgery. His heart collapsed on him. All his money's gone. All his plants have been flooded and droughted, both 1 year drought, 1 year flood. Nothing survived. All the money's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this. I was in Greece at the time. And I said, what? No, this is too valuable. I told Lynda, or she told me, I can't remember, but let's just put the last traveller's checks together and get an airline ticket and go home. And let's do this. He survived his operation. He was very debilitated from that time on. He was a much weaker man than before. But he managed to come up with 3 or 4 months with me to the bush, and he showed me the techniques. And his dream, which was just to grow tea trees, and sell the oil. And I soon found out there was no one wanting to buy the oil. That's why I started at the Shannon market. And I said, for $2, you take this bottle home and use it for everything.
$2?
First aid kit in a bottle, and it was a 50ml bottle. I'll tell you, that was I had no clue on financial reckoning. And that first market, I worked really hard trying to flog 7 bottles. Please try it. And they'll look very sceptical. What's this nonsense? That's out of date stuff. The next market, a month later, the Shannon market, Lynda and I setting up a table. We used to do tea and Anzac biscuits and tea tree oil. We were tea and tea tree oil. And while we're setting the stall up and putting up the rigging and putting out the signs, 5 or 6 people came up and said, hey, mate, that stuff you got, so I want 2 more bottles, one for my mother, one for my kid. I sold 30 bottles without trying. And I knew from that moment on, I'm on the right track. This is what people
also because
need,
you experience it yourself.
Yeah, well, I always knew that, but convincing others is always harder. Anyway, the rest is history. Wow. We grew from there.
I know you're running out of time. Will you come back for another episode?
Oh, darling, you've had enough me.
It's
I want to see other people.
Never enough. There's a lot more that I would love to hear your experience. And
I'll come back for this carrot juice.
Yes, please.
Carrot and ginger. Made by a maestress.
With lime from my farm.
Oh, it's so delicious. So I'm going to finish
Tahitian
that.
lime. And so I would like to have you back. Please.
Sweetheart, I'm always, I'd love to come with you. Look at all the musical instruments
another
in this
time,
house.
for sure.
It's a house of love and gaiety and beauty.
And
you,
because
such a beauty.
there's also the other one, your significant role in establishing Organic India. That's also really. I remember when you were in the middle of it, and after art class, and you say, "Let me show you what I'm doing," and I saw all the photographs of you in India with teaching the.
Well, that was just a pure joy. I loved it. 10 years helping Organic India get commercially viable, because they were such a good hand. The mission statement of Organic India is to be a vehicle of consciousness. What better company ethos could you have? And they meant it. It wasn't just words on paper. This was how the whole company was run and believed. They weren't financially very stable. They had lots of charity money coming in from good benefactors who looked after it.
Yes.
But they were definitely never going to make $1 the way they were going.
Yeah.
So I was able to share some of my business skills and just guide, and then they took over. I mean, they were racing along without me in the end, and very successfully still racing on Tulsi tea around the world, thanks to Organic India.
And
many other good things.
Thanks to you, because
Well, I was a little part of that, but I played my part, and I'm happy for that. And I've loved seeing good ethical business thrive.
Yeah.
It should. The planet needs it. So. Yeah, and the other thing we haven't touched on, which is really my heart's direction now,
yes,
the ascension of consciousness that's happening on the planet. I'm not going to talk about it now because it's a 3-hour rave, but I've been watching this for 60 years, maybe exaggerating, 55 years, and everything I read about this back then, when I did believe nothing of it, I thought it was all a nonsense fiction work.
Like I was.
Channel work you're the good skeptic, but I'm no longer skeptical. I've seen everything coming true, everything, the development of the internet, the globalization of this planet, the collapse that's happening right now, and the inevitable ascension of consciousness, and then the contact with galactic beings, the contact with angels, the contact with whatever spirit you want to name it. And of course, as we merge into the field of unity and consciousness of the whole universe. There's only one thing. There's one thing here. That's it. Even the Catholic Church used to teach that, but nobody knew what they were talking about. So that's my joy.
Yes.
And I watch way too many YouTube videos about it. Some of them are nonsense and some of them are unbelievable.
Yes.
But the one word I give all your viewers, if you haven't got down this rabbit hole, look up the word disclosure. And go follow where disclosure on YouTube takes you. And it's the disclosure of other entities, non-human entities, galactic beings coming to this planet. For years they were dismissed and mocked and treated like idiots, and it was all the cranks in the back room saying it. Now it's the leaders of governments, the leaders of
admitting it.
Military, national intelligence, people who've been bound up in this for 40 years under NDAs, told they can't say anything about it. Blow your mind to go down that path. And that's where I'm at. And
I've watched a few.
I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm telling you, this planet...
What do you think of AI?
I love AI. I love it.
Because some people
And it's what this world's been waiting for. We can't run the bloody world. We're running it into the ground. AI is going to come up with intelligent paths for us to follow. It's a wonderful medium. So I'm not going to say more and let all your other visitors tell me how wrong I am, but I know I'm right. I've got to go because I'm done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Thank you.